Good morning, everyone. Microphone check, screen check. Looks like everything is working correctly. Yeah, perfect. Wonderful. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully everyone is able to rest up over the weekend. Get ready for the week ahead. I I definitely had my fair share of rest, that's for sure. Jeez, oh Pete. Got the for those of you who missed it, I got the second dose of the vaccine last week, Wednesday, and it was supposed to be on Tuesday, but on Wednesday, and it was all right until later that morning, afternoon-ish, and then it just totally wrecked me the next day. I was out. It just didn't. Ugh. But then the following morning, you wake up, felt totally fine. A little bit of a headache, but I mean, all things considered. So it's crazy how fast it comes and goes. But well, that's all behind me now, and then we should be ready to rock and roll and good to go. So before we're jumping in, as always, on the left side of the screen there, make sure to read through the live trade room morning prep PDF. Very important to understand, go through that, understand everything that is inside there. Just a quick note for everyone before we jump on in, please keep in mind that the YouTube broadcast does have between a 5 and 30 second delay depending on where you're logging in from, which can definitely impact the timeliness of what I may be talking about at the time. So, just kind of keep that in mind. I do have the clock in the corner, so you'll be able to see where you're at in terms of difference, to kind of keep check with that. Just want to take a second to give a quick shout out to our latest members that joined in the overnight over the weekend last week. I missed those as well since I was out for the last few days here. Thank you so much for the support. I'm pumped to have you on the SSFTG family. If you aren't a member yet, you do have a few different options available to check out if you're looking to further your trading education and career. Here on YouTube, you can check out the join button below the stream. YouTube family gains access to the extended trading hours room, which continues the morning room from 10 until whenever it ends up closing, usually 10:30, 11 o'clock. Every member gains permanent access to the Discord chat server, and of course, you get the awesome badge next to your name here on YouTube to show your support, and it just looks cool. What can I say? To understand our trading approach and what I'm doing here every day in the room, look no further than the Day Trading Academy. Listen, this is no lightweight PDF you're going to finish in an afternoon. We're talking 19 plus hours of course and study material, not including the homework and review and study guides and all kinds of stuff. So you best tuck in if you're going to be going that route. And then finally, the big kahuna, the Mac Daddy, the VIP. VIPs have exclusive permanent access to the non-delayed stream covering the entire morning room from 9 until whenever it is that we close to ensure that you're on the fastest connection possible and that you don't miss any beats along the way. Alongside that, VIPs also have access to our monthly VIP webinars, private events, one-on-one scheduling access, all kinds of cool stuff. So whether you're here for the very first time or you're a seasoned veteran over on the Zoom stream, welcome. I'm glad to have you trading alongside me today and analyzing these crazy markets. Let's take a look at some news, take a look at some charts, see what's going on this morning so we can dive into the fun stuff. Don't forget to grab your morning DP levels. Those were posted for you this morning to get the major 7 markets that we trade here. Taking a look at the news calendar, or, well, the distinct lack thereof. Very obvious. Well, I mean, there's just nothing. There's absolutely nothing on the news calendar that we're going to have to worry about. So that's pretty easy from that point. Let's get that out of the way there. Starting off on the NASDAQ 15 and kind of looking at where we're going here, obviously up. But if we get a little bit closer in terms of what's going on here, we can see that there's some really strong breakaway moves. We had a really giant lift to the upside. Bulls had, I guess you could call that a pullback. At anything, I guess it'd be a little micro two-legged pullback before having another really strong leg to the upside. Went sideways for a little while, and they finally came back and retested a major low, and that just ignited the rocket ship to the upside. This thing went screaming higher, and since then, with another aggressive breakout, shallow pullback, and more continuation up. It's like this whole thing over here just kind of chunked together a little bit narrower. So if that gives us any idea in terms of what to expect, while the market was driving higher after that big pulse, we had 3 press top. Big drive up, We have our one, well, a little bit muddy inside there, but this could be, this whole thing could be 1, then 2, which is why it's a little bit awkward with that weekend gap there. I don't know if I like that enough, honestly. I was going to try to go with that repetitive movement, but I just don't think this looks good enough. We have to recalibrate the approach here. Much better off, I think, in this case, just to go with the wider wedge. That's just all it's really following through with. And at the moment, we're attempting to break to the downside of that. Probably, more than anything else, just to fill the gap down there. Man, funky location here. If we look at the overall pullback, which technically the top of that pullback was over here to the lows of the pullback, which is way over here. What a mess. If we are going to get a valued pullback that's going to be at around 13,800s, we've got a bit until that happens, considering that that's about, oh, you know, good 200 points away. No big deal. See if they want to pull back that far or not. On the S&P, similar situation. We're getting very overdone to the upside here. And the S&P, out of all of them, very blatantly obvious ceilings on this thing to the upside. And when it breaks through it, it creates a nice little floor. And when it creates a ceiling, it best stay away from it because it usually gets stuck there for a while. And it seems like here as well, on the S&P, we're having these kind of patterns that are narrowing in. But they just don't look consistent enough to really mark them up in that way. So I think given what the market's actually giving us to work with, sheesh, we're going to have to zoom in a little bit closer here, and I think just go with the more recent miss off of this low and use that as a fresh starting point. And the fact that the sellers they got bum rushed from the lows and just got slammed through the top. So given that's kind of our unofficial starting point, for lack of anything else, we have a nice little L4 pullback that broke higher. Typically, L4s are going to want to hold L1s. They held an L2. Still running into a little bit of consistency problems. Now that we've gapped up to new highs, we're seeing a little bit of a pullback. And maybe this is where we get that supportive L1 bounce that does already fill the gap. We've got a lot of things that are lining up here, but I mean, who wants to buy with that in their face? You know, like, geez, that's about as brutal of a brick wall ceiling as you can ask for. I don't think anybody's going to want to try to go through that. That's tough. If this ends up being a big trap, big flush, and then a big reversal or something, maybe. But this is really, really rough to want to try to get in the face of that. Maybe we have a little bit of a wedge pullback. I guess. There's a lot of maybes here on the S&P. This thing's nasty looking. We have to wait for some clarity, it seems. Over on gold, no clarity needed. Pretty straightforward what's happening here. The market is getting absolutely annihilated to the downside. Jeez. Let's go out to a 60-minute chart. I'm going to have to add more days. I don't want to go too crazy. Let's just go to 60. Yeah. Never fails, does it? Fine. I'll go out to 90. There it is. Okay. So we've got the low at the bottom. Major pullback was an L2. Next pullback after that was an L1. Major pullback after that was an L2. Next pullback after that was an L1. Major pullback. I don't know. What do you think? That's a toughie, isn't it? It seems like an L2 would make the most sense. Every time they've had an L2 pullback, though, looking back historically, because this is seemingly following historical movement, the L2s do tend to chop through the base. There's a nice bounce initially off of the L2. You'll notice over here there's a very sharp aggressive bounce. And when we came up here to the larger L2, there was a very sharp aggressive bounce. If it's going to go, the initial rally is where it's going to go, and if it doesn't, it usually holds a secondary and almost never goes down to the L3. Never say never, but that should be our stop location then, if that's the case, at least for invalidation. So as the market approaches this area, we have not even tested the top of L2. Well, I don't know about you, but that seems like a pretty nice spot to be looking for some potential buying opportunities here to the upside. And, well, that's going to be the zone of interest. So we'll see if they can get down to this area around 1842, 1841. That's going to be the spot. Right there. Over on crude oil, just nonstop flight to the moon. We have broken above the $70 mark. The $70 mark was a little bit sketchy. You know, we did find some resistance there. It broke above, tried holding. Didn't really hold very well, though. Sorry, 1 second, guys. All right, sorry about that. So as far as the overall momentum to the upside here on crude, obviously this is bullish. We've got a very, very nice spike in channel to the upside. The spike in channel's starting point, though, is a bit of a hard call. Where does the spike and the, where does the spike stop and the channel begin? This thing is pretty nuts. Does the actual channel point start down here? Right, there was a little micro one down here. And if we extend that further forward, you'll notice there's a significant amount of support off of that relatively innocuous little low down there. All of a sudden, we're creating major structural turning points. Once the market broke through, it's starting to turn into resistance. And now we're kind of skipping off the backside of it. So there are some obvious problems there. But, is that too far back? Because there was this nice break in separation, and there was another break in separation, and another one. And so we can kind of keep redrawing this over and over and over again until we kind of finally find one that the market seems to have settled on. And I think that's going to be the best approach for at least right now, until we have a little bit more definition of what the market wants to do. If we're looking across the board here, I think it makes a lot of sense starting from let's start from down here and work our way forward. That's really tough to ignore. All right, what about down here? Okay. Halfway decent. What about on the top? Pretty good. Okay. So as far as a channel goes, it's a bit rough in some portions. You can see there's some definitive separation. I think, to be fair, this is when the market was kind of exploring what the heck was happening because it wasn't stopping to the upside. Now, when the market did start pulling back and kind of create this residual continuation, we found some good support and resistance off of this area. It would make a logical zone of resistance up here, which targets right around 72. I don't want to be a seller necessarily there, but it does seem when the market hits the top, it puts in a pretty aggressive turning point. Of course, this time, now that everybody's expecting that, it won't. But something to at least consider if you're long, that would be a reason why a lot of traders will be looking to trail their stops up, etc. Buyers, they're going to have a tough shot. There's really nothing until we at least get down to the negative half DP. Negative half DP, or even a bit further, puts us into some previous zones of support. We've got the $70 mark, previous range breakout pullback zone, bottom of the channel. Everything lines up down there. So as it stands, crude's kind of floating around in the middle of nowhere. It's got to either finish the job to the upside or pull back. Over on the euro, lordy. Hang on, before I forget. Did I change crude back to the 15? I did, okay. Good. Over on the euro, we've got some very, very strong rotation off the lows. And strong rotation in the sense that this thing just dove bomb all the way down to the base. And then they couldn't break a low? Question mark? What? It's like, why? What happened? Where did all the sellers go? All of that strength. And nothing, huh? All right, well, let's look back. What happened last couple times? All right, well, big drive to the downside. Little bit continuation. Huge reversal. Big drive down. Big reversal. Not huge. Didn't fully reverse, but big reversal. Took back about 60% of the move. We go back again. Huge reversal. Total reversal. Big drive to the downside. Went sideways. Didn't really do much. But generally speaking, it seems like when the market puts in a big pulse, what ends up being a zone of interest? That base point. It either never comes back or it goes sideways and then comes back and just gives it a quick little retap with the higher low. And if that fails, it usually dives again. So we've got a lot of if-then scenarios that are going on right now. We've got a big dive to the downside and a failure to launch. So realistically, with that failure to launch, we should see the market want to retest these higher lows a couple more times. Now, the higher lows may be here. They may be a little bit lower down to settlement. They may be a little bit higher up here, not sure. And that's where this might make a bit more sense from an options perspective, because this is kind of a non-defined zone. If you zoom into maybe a 5-minute chart or a 1-minute chart, we might be able to find some better zones of interest. But as it stands, it's kind of like here, 21,300 back to settlement. It's a pretty wide zone. Better to wait for some extra proof. Or maybe a big wick or just something. We already talked about crypto in the chat room this morning on the Discord side of things. Bitcoin had that nice, beautiful constriction. It just turned into that hourly bull engulfing candle, and you can see what the follow through was on that. It was a solid $700,000-$800,000 drive to the upside, all the way up through 40,000. Now we're breaking above the highs. Very strong continuation to the upside. Bitcoin's looking really good. In the 15-minute chart, we do have a two-legged continuation move that looks like it might need a bit more juice to the upside, probably narrowing into those 41, 42s. We've been talking about that area for a while, though. Over on Ethereum, nice strong rally here as well, but no break above that previous high, and notably, a nice little flag. So breakout flag, well, would make a lot of sense for them to pull back, and even better, where are they pulling back to? 2,500. Talk about a psychological level, huh? Great spot right inside there. So a little flash pullback, 2,500s might be a great launching board. I think sellers know they're stuck. If they were short, they're scrambling to get out. Probably selling as much as they can to average up. Heavy leverage, right? We know what's going on here. That usually means that if this does squeeze to the upside, and that's probably what it'll end up being, is a squeeze above the top with a big pulse through 25.50. We'll see. Should be interesting. All right. Over on the NASDAQ, looking at the NASDAQ from the top down here on the daily. The volume perspective, I think, here gives us the biggest perspective. I have a ridiculous amount of days here. But I guess as soon as I turn those off, I'm going to need them, right? So, looking at the overall movement that we had going on here, obviously there's a lot of back and forth. But the one thing that is very for sure here is that we had some very obvious things that happened within the volume construct. So if we're looking at this overall movement, we had this drive, very aggressive drive to the upside. And when the market was pulling back, we saw what? Accumulation volume, right? Rising volume into a higher low pullback. Thank you, clock. I appreciate that. At least it did it right before I started drawing. Right into that pocket of wicks. That's a very obvious place that buyers are going to be buying for higher lows and continuation back up. And then this bear bar happened that went above the bearish bull bar, triggered some of the bulls in to get the thing going, and then closed all the way back down. Obviously, they didn't stick around to see what happened next. Big cluster of orders underneath that low, and a stop run underneath the low that kind of paints the story as to what happened there. Big blow-off move. Right? A lot of buyers jumped ship. They tried to get the move going. It failed. Oh well, we'll try again later. Rolls a little bit lower. Now who steps up to the plate? This is still accumulation volume, just in a bigger scale. The POC is down here now. Well, okay, maybe buyers are trying to buy on a higher low down here, or maybe even a little bit of a trap low. Regardless of what they're trying to do, they're still trying to buy inside of here, and we see their POC point right there. The market tries to go above them. Fantastic bull bar. Triggers above. Immediately dives back down. Now, if you're a bull, right, we've all been there before, right? We buy immediately, like it knew it was there, and it was waiting for us just to pull the trigger, just so they could shoot a nail straight through our foot, right? That's what it did here. We've been there before. It hits the low. We know what happens. The buyers buy the low, they average down, jumps back up, and what happens next? That's the clue. What happens next? We need to see what happens next. If I were a buyer here above this phenomenal bull bar, and I bought more underneath the low, and there is volume to support that thesis, right? Then realistically, a lot of traders are going to look to get out at break even in the middle. There is a lot of volume to support that thesis. So when it goes further back up here and makes a lower high, my next assumption is, uh-oh, buyers already dumped a lot of their load, and when it came back up into this POC from the previous area, they just took it as icing on the cake. Like, all right, cool. I already backed the truck up and got rid of most of those at break even a little bit. This is just icing on the cake, paid for gas, paid for some of the seats, and oh, hey, now we got some dinner, we've got some, hey, it's getting better and better. Now we're back to that break even point. Got that nice bull bar, it closed above the POC, you can feel the greed. How many traders do you think wanted to see, hey, wait a minute. I was long here, we came really close to break even, and maybe I should have gotten out there. Right? But you can feel that greed. We got that close above. I'm going to see what happens next. We'll give it a minute. Giant bear bar all the way back down. Crap. Wait, no, please come back. What happens? Doesn't even make it back up. They scrambled. Whoops. I'm sorry, market. Get me out of this thing. Dive bomb all the way back to the downside. They jump ship. Rolls all the way down into a new low. So with this new low, we have this POC cluster that already demonstrated buyers getting out at break even, which suggests sellers potentially trying to get a new trend going. That's dangerous for long. I mean, that's the US indexes we're talking about here, bear trend. It failed to continue, rotated back up to a new high. That was very important. When it did that, it made a top-weighted POC. That kind of sucks. Nobody's really a huge fan of that, and it did end up sliding off of that very nicely. Accumulation volume all the way up to that point. Very straightforward. But here again, when the market's pulling back, where's the POC? The POC is in the middle. It's tough to see. So if we narrow in a little bit here, man, that's tough to see. Here to that one. There we go. So you can see how this one formed here. We had the POC that was right up at the top, and we see decreasing volume on the way down. Profit taking. Makes a lot of sense. We start backing off in a potential pullback area. We see volume start creeping up. A lot of volume creeping up. Starts backing back off again. We're not seeing anybody show up to the party. And then all of a sudden, the POC shows up down here at the lows. And remember, we were talking about how if that doesn't make a new low, or how strong of a likelihood that sellers are going to be looking for that new low, and that failed. So when that failed, what happened? This is the very important little nuances that you want to look for. Sellers who sold down here, they got out of break even. Uh-oh. Goes screaming all the way back to the upside with this really strong continuation higher. Now, if you're following along with the volume, that's not really that big of a surprise. But now we can kind of gauge we can gauge forward here as to what's going on now. Because we have this seller's bias that they're trying to get this to rotate back off. What ended up happening? They came back to the previous POC where they realized, tried getting the trend going to the downside, it failed. Broke back up, they got out at break even, reversed it back to the upside. Sellers failed with that higher low, game over. And then it goes screaming all the way back to the upside. We create a middle-weighted POC. Sellers tried it one more time. We were talking about how important that failure was. And any pullback after that is going to be sellers scrambling. Look at all of those wicks on those lows. Giant bull engulfing bar right back up to the top. And we are almost at all-time highs. All-time highs with the new contract rollover, which if you haven't done so, make sure that you do roll over. That's up at 43.25 is the high that we had for today at least. The all-time high was at 14.053. We'll see if they can make it. So the volume is what's telling us the huge story here. And the other thing that it's telling us is there's still potential upside momentum. The 60-minute, the volume doesn't really honestly change a whole lot. If you look at the 60-minute perspective, we can see a similar situation. We saw that middle-weighted POC. We saw them back off to that point. They backed off one more time. And here's the thing that really makes this so vindictive on the 60-minute, because if you look really closely, notice that this did not actually hit it. See? So the fact that it didn't actually hit it means that a lot of those to the, die hard break evens, they weren't actually filled. So when it came back and finished the job here, that response kind of tells you what happened. That's just a little bit. And here we are off to the races with a brand new spike in channel. What a ripper. POC's back here, 13,961. If the bulls are going to take it, that's where they're going to try to bounce it. We'll see what they're able to do. Hey, Bill. Yeah. Last Thursday and Friday, I had the second dose of the COVID vaccine on Wednesday. And Wednesday afternoon or so, it was fine. 9:28 around the corner. Side note. It was fine, but man, as the day went on and I went to bed, woke up, that thing just curled me into a ball. I would have rather been duct taped into a ball and just put out of my misery for a day. It was terrible. Like body aches, chills. It chills so bad, like it was brutal. So it put me out, and I was just down and out for the last couple days. And then just as quick as it showed up, woke up and with a little bit of a headache, the rest of the symptoms were just gone. So, I mean, granted, it was after like 16 hours of sleep. I don't think I woke up until like 11:30 or 12:30 or whenever I posted in the Discord room on Friday, but that thing laid me out. Which seems to be a common theme, at least for me it was. With the first dose, it was just heavy fatigue. The second dose, same thing, heavy fatigue. No, like, I didn't feel sick or nauseous or anything. Thank God. That would have been awful if I did. It's just body aches, chills, just miserable. 1 minute until the open. Now I'm fine. So, I mean, hey, I'll take it. We do have kind of that funky gap up over the weekend. Makes things a little bit awkward. The market would love to fill that in. That would be an inefficiency that, well, we know how the market rolls. Not a fan of those. See if it wants to back up or get something going down there. 13,961.50 is that larger POC from the 60 minute. And the 15 hasn't stopped being bear bars. Jeez. Man, I thought that looked really weird, but I guess not, huh? We are stuck dead in the middle of the Euro and Asian session. I mean, technically they did go higher, I guess, but... All right, let's get into the action here. Market's starting to rotate its way to the downside. Definitive sell-side pressure now chopping through all of the moving averages. Oh, man. That thing just dove almost straight down to where I wanted it to dive down to, and now it's kind of like job's done, huh? We do still have the POC cluster from the 60 minute down a bit further, 961.50. Sellers still definitely mean business here. Monstrous continuation. Golly gee willikers, Batman. This thing might just dive straight down and get the job done all at once, huh? And yes, it is summer. My son's hanging out with me, so you'll hear him in the background. 961.50, that's the zone. This thing's just not pulling back. $961.50. Well, talk about not being taken along for the ride, huh? Jeez. I mean, technically, if you read between the lines inside of that, there was kind of a second sell, I guess. Had that doop, doop, doop. Oh, for sure. Like, I don't blame anybody if they took the sell inside there. I just didn't get it set up for me. If you have the gas pedal down a little bit more than me, yeah, for sure. We know what's happening, right? But when I can't clearly define risk for myself, I skip them. Too strong of a bounce to want to sell into, noting that we've already hit the objective at 961.50. That response at 961.50 should tell you everything. Oh, and side note, that POC that was at 61.50 changed to 60. So that POC is now at 60 if you wanted, you know, a bit more evidence that those traders might have jumped ship at break even. Just saying. Not to say that sellers won't keep trying to push this to the downside, but I definitely don't have the gas pedal to the floor anymore. Sellers trying to continue down through this area. Major POC that was pushed and tested here. Look at this bull bar bounce. Like I said, I still think the sellers are involved, and if a strong enough bull bar to bear bar transition takes place, I don't see a reason why sellers won't take it. But realistically, you know, it's got to kind of hit the gas pedal. Nice bear bar underneath this developing POC would be great. That ain't it. Okay, triggering higher. Man, they're messing with this area hard, huh? Nice bear close back down. Back underneath the developing POC. They've got to actually trigger that bear bar, though. Retesting back up and hitting this zone of resistance. I tried hitting the ask. I didn't get filled. Fantastic. The bear bar didn't trigger. The bear bar didn't trigger. Okay, now that kind of bear response definitely helps. POC shifting to the downside. Market pops back above it. See if they trigger back underneath this bear bar, because if they do, that would be breaking below the POC and a bear trigger. Could not get the job done. Bull bar. Buyers will potentially buy that. POC pops back to the upside at 970.50. First 5-minute POC is in. It's at the bottom? Really? 67.75. Fantastic. Yep, just too many failures. And when it came time for them to actually get the job done, they couldn't get the job done. Really nice sell bar, but terrible location. Either going to be a trap or it's going to work fast. Nice that it's off the back of a double top. They're still messing around with this zone here. More continuation back to the upside. That does break through the double top that was there. But it doesn't break through the choppy gross. From the swing perspective on the 60-minute at least, now that we have some very obvious demonstrated proof of what's going on here, buyers on a retest for a swing long looking at the micro might have a nice little opportunity for a long there, stop underneath the low, target 2 to 1 should fit back inside the highs. Around 960. So at 960 on the micro, if they were going to put their stop down at the lows, that would be down at 17. And that would put, just to visually see it, targets right there, which are just above the highs. Okay, that doesn't work. We got to go a little lower. Just. Okay. How about a new low? A new low, that puts a target there. Hey, you know, I'm going to see. Yeah. Now that would be a nice little target. If I could get a target like here. Sorry, I'm just playing with risk reward on the other screen here. All right, so an optimized entry point as far as the swing long goes would be there at 53. And that gives us a target which fits inside the highs, fits inside of all of those resistances. That's a significantly better location if it pulls back. It's a very strong move back to the upside, and we've already bounced aggressively off of the objective on the lows. We already know what's going on down here. This shouldn't be a surprise, at least. The earlier sellers got out of break even. Now they're following through. Sellers tried here, but bloop, they didn't get the job done. See if we can get a dip into the 90s here on the NASDAQ for longs. I think buyers will try to pick this up on a dip into the 90s, sub 90s. If they even pull back. More on the scalp side for the mini. The micro still makes more sense down at 53. Still interested in the 90s, maybe lower 90s. 14,000, gigantic round number right here. Thanks for pointing out the 967 transition area. Yeah, definitely. I didn't. Oh, you did. I gotcha. I gotcha. You didn't take the long, but that was your objective for the short. Great work. Hey, I mean, either way, you know, whatever side. Still no pullback for, well, anybody, really. If we're looking at this from the larger perspective on the move down, it's very, very likely that a lot of traders were stuck and trapped in that move, which usually creates a two-legged move. That's what that drive down was. They finished off the objective. Now we're back to that 375 previous POC area. It's not a surprise to see some resistance here, but at the same time, there's no real necessity for them to hold it down. Nice little dip back to 14K. Oh my God, I can't get a fill to save my life. Give me a little bit lower now. Just a little poke. Just a little poke. A little poke down there. Little poke. Mm-hmm. Yep. Just a little poke down there. Yeah. Yep. There you go. Yep, just a little poke. There you go. Yep. Perfect. Maybe a little more? No? Okay. Nice jump back to the upside. Beautiful scalper's objective. Very nice. Whoa! Golly, that candle just showed up. Welcome to the party. 9:45 right around the corner. We have zero news today. From a shorter term, I mean, from a shorter term swing long on the NASDAQ, the micro NASDAQ, that is. If the NASDAQ bulls do want to take it, they've got a shot at around 89.25-ish. So that's 16-ish. Okay. Oh my God, this is the thing that I hate about the swing stuff, because as soon as it makes a little move, then everything's moved again. I need to figure out a way here. I think let's do it this way. Let me use a risk-reward tool. And that way we can see where those swing areas are. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it that way. Or maybe a box. Just something that's more visually obvious. I'm obviously a bit better with buy, bid, sell, ask, as long as the thing wants to fill me. More continuation to the upside. Jeez. Thing is just screaming. Big breakaway continuation momentum. almost a bull engulfing bar. All right, and then I can do that. There we go. Very strong bullish continuation, just keeps on going. That's the zone of interest at the moment on the micro NASDAQ for the shorter term. The bottom of that box being the stop point. The top of that box being the entry point. Or, well, where the entry buyers will begin. Not so sure they're ever going to pull back, though, to be fair. Now we're back to the top of the Euro session. V bottom. The NASDAQ does love its V bottoms. Man, I was hoping for at least another bounce down there. Well, now we've got a little bit higher aggression here for buyers in two different locations. I still like the slightly deeper area, though. POC still stuck at the bottom. It hasn't made a new high yet. Remember, all-time highs are at 53. They're right there, but it hasn't quite hit it yet. All right, NASDAQ. Do you want to pull back? Still too early for me to really care what volume's going on here with like POCs and all that. We've only got like 2 candles being measured. I'm looking at this more in the context of a pullback, but now they've got a double top at the highs again. And yeah, there it goes. Try again later. Yeah, I mean, technically that was the pullback. Looking across the board here to see what's going on. The S&P has tagged the bottom of the 15-minute wedge. Gold misses the low by like a hair. Just misses it. Ethereum does finally catch up and takes off. What a shock. Not a surprise there. Big blow off above the highs on Bitcoin and Ethereum. Euro... Euro's still kind of a mumbler. All right. Hey, it's only 2 candles, but maybe a pullback. Nice continued pullback momentum. Bull zone of interest in the shorter term on the micro would be at around 10. Stop points or break points would be back below 14,000, but being how big of a psychological level that is, you know, grain of salt as far as how much or little risk you want to give it. We haven't even gone a half DP up or down. It's just... I mean, I know these look like incredibly huge moves, but realistically, it hasn't proven much. POC shifted down at 14,023, but breaking lower. Micro NASDAQ fills the pullback for buyers to pick up the swing long. Upside objectives back into the 30s to 40s. Risk 2 to 1. Although still zones of interest a little bit lower. Alright, now that we've got the area, I can get rid of the ginormous pink box. All right. Continuing to pull back. I think we've finally gotten the micro management ready. Objectives to the upside now modified with the micro to 2550. Actual risk 2 to 1. They're messing around with a POC here. Trying to close up, trying to close down. POC shifting higher. Oh, shifted right back down again. Bulls getting more separation, or attempting to at least, above the near-term POC. If we see a return on the NASDAQ back above the 16s, I'm going to be less inclined to want to hold on to it if it starts breaking back down again. We are pulling back to that POC for a potential retest for buyers to pick it back up. This is the first reversal, though. Oh, they closed on top of the POC. Still no separation away from it, but... am I correct in saying that the volume is very low for the NASDAQ today? It is quad witching. Yeah, the volume is very low. Remember, it's rollover, too. So a lot of people are rolling over. I mean, the volume's pretty split as far as that's concerned, which also doesn't help. There's some definite kinks in the line. that would cause the volume to be a little bit weird today for sure. We'll probably, as the week goes on, see it normalize. Well, maybe not because of the quad witching side of things, but. Nice bear bar, but the sellers are being forced to sell through the POC with it closing above. That's obviously a giant red flag for sellers. We'll see if they're able to actually finish the job or if that pocket of wick below is just going to support it. Ooh, lordy. It looks like that pocket of wicks is supporting it. Bulls triggering in, looking for a continuation to the upside for a break above 15. Potential rally up through the 20s. It is forcing buyers to buy high in this short-term range, but that's a very nice potential continuation play. Okay. Wow, right at the end of the candle. Okay. See if that's enough juice to follow it through the 15s. Start jumping up into the 20s. Nice upside objective. 1675. Previous zone. That's a nice spot right there. All right. Nice pop to the upside. I'm going to drop one of these micros here. And try to trail this last one up along with price. The 2-to-1 objectives in the 24s, 25s, so if we can get above that, then I'll be a little bit more aggressive on the stop, but right now I'm going to still trying to keep the stop a little ways back, just given the way that it kind of played ball. Really nice weak bear bar there for the bulls on the NASDAQ. Buyers might even be underneath that bear bar, looking for a quick snap back to the upside. They might not even be able to trigger it from the looks of it. Nope. Sheesh. 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. Pop, pop, pop. All right, we're up into those 2-to-1s. Stop gets a little tighter and taken out on the stop. Okay, well, fair enough. So stopped out on the micro NASDAQ swing long. Very nice bounce. Took a little bit of heat initially, though. I didn't want to play ball at first. Larger swing still a little bit deeper down the 53s. Ooh, POC retest here on the NASDAQ would be really nice back down in those 10s. Let's see if things have changed, though. Nope, they're still at 10s. POC shifting to 12. Oh, uh-oh. Okay. Wow. See if they trigger above that bear bar. Watch it above this bear bar here. Triggered above. No continuation, though. Immediately backed up on itself. Not enough there. It's like nobody showed up to the party. Okay. Looks like they still need a bit of time then. Breaking back down now. Bear engulfing candle underneath 4012s. POC shifting down to 10s. Now, if we go back all the way from top to bottom, technically that POC was right there. Yeah, they tried getting above it and they failed. Oof. 2 legs down. It's starting to make a bit more sense here if this can't get the job done. And that puts it right back at settlement. It's perfect. If only it lined up with the swing at the bottom, down at 53 instead of 85. Just a bit off. Bulls trying to creep it back up. We are past 10 o'clock. Side note, just for those of you who are looking at the 10 o'clock rollover to the extended session, this morning I'm obviously I've got to get back into the groove of things. I accidentally started the extended session first, and then when I ended it, it finished it like it was done. So I'm just going to keep this morning one going for now, and we'll leave it that way. It'll just be easier instead of having to recreate a new one and all that. So I'm just going to keep the morning session for today rolling. Because, you know, old Captain Butterfingers over here slapping the wrong buttons. So give me 1 second here. I'll be right back. I'll grab a drink, and then we'll transition into the extended session. Still looking for the swing longs off of 953. And I had a request in the extended session. I'm kind of curious to see, even though we're not technically in the extended session right now, to do more of the S&P on the 5-minute. And approaching it like the candle by candle psychology style in the extended session on the side. So let me know what you guys think. Post in your thoughts there. But I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab a drink and then we'll rock and roll. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. Objective completed for the shorts. Job done. All right. Candle by candle on the 5 minute would be great. Yeah, okay. Wow. Jeez. Definitely job done. Now, they did make a new low, so we can continue this all the way from the left to the right. POC's in the middle at 14,010. This type of movement makes me cautious entering in either direction. Yeah. Huge recovery from the opening, dump, and now we're falling again. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? The only thing that I could really see stand out on the NASDAQ that would make sense as to why we would have another severe dive down, other than... like, if it went further down, I mean. Like, more than just this two-legged correction. If this ends up being the bottom, I think it's a logical pullback. It makes sense. We go back up to the highs. Everything's hunky-dory. But if it does end up making another break back down again, I mean, realistically, we've got the 5-minute POC cluster at 67.75 and the 60-minute POC that shifted down at 960. So, I mean, the fact that the 5-minute POC is where the break-even was, and the 60-minute POC shifted down to 960 kind of gives a pretty obvious idea as to what happened, huh? We had a huge break even there. And if the market comes back down to that zone, that would be the only thing I could think of that would make sense, is a retest of that area and then another V-bottom back up again, you know? But if that next V-bottom, if that does end up being the case, fails, it's game over. Deeper pullback time. Yeah, maybe do a poll with the on which directions you're going, unless you're getting a lot of requests. One thing. The thing is, I get a request and it's something that I already enjoy doing, so it's like, oh yeah, that'd be great, you know. Like I guess that's kind of the problem when you enjoy your job, huh? It's no longer a job. Yes, Monday. Bears looking for a bit more continuation to the downside. Might have a nice little bear bar to try to trigger them short underneath. But again, the objective's already been finalized at the lows. I'm going to lose a lot of interest in wanting to do much on the sell side now. Do I still have my... Do I have my old chart template? I wonder, do I... If I do, I'm going to rename it. Alright, ES. I do. Oh, sweet thing. I haven't seen this in so long. Sellers might be trying to get that bear bar to the downside. Just be careful of deception here. Be very careful of deception here. Because it's one of those things where it's like really fantastic looking setup in a really bad location. Just caution. Just caution. It's a very nice bear bar. If it's going to work, it's probably going to work quickly. Okay, sellers do end up taking it back down again. That's a touchy spot right there. Yikes. I found the old 5-minute template. I gotta change the bar timer though. Yikes. I renamed it Old Faithful. What is the 13,985 line? I missed it. That's yesterday's settlement. Or, sorry, yesterday's. Friday's settlement. But, remember, settlement's kind of weird because, well, settlement on which contract, you may ask. That's where things get a little bit weird. So, today, generally speaking, the distances are close to the same anyway. As far as like the DP distances, nothing wild has happened that has thrown them off yet. So rollover days are always super weird when it comes to that, though. Oh, we're at settlement. Oh, which one? That is a heck of a bull bar off of the low. Holy crap. All right.
How hungry am I? How hungry? My only banana splits. Come here, banana.
Another bear bar back down after a huge bull bar back up. Seems like bears totally lost their grip now. It didn't make a new low, but if we continue this over to the higher low, we can see a potential transition in power going on at 13,999. We still have the 14,000 mark to contend with. Everything's kind of around that middle point. Nice breakaway move above the top. Which way does this thing want to go? Jeez. Back inside the Euro session low. We've closed up and then closed immediately back down. But the problem is this short puts it directly into 999 POC. So I want to see, do they hit it and immediately bounce? That'd be a big red flag for the sellers. We've already seen the sellers get trapped in once. Now the POC's at 14,000. What a shock. So the sellers are being forced to short directly into the POC, and now it's holding. That's going to cause some problems. Very nice bull bar. It's forcing people to buy way up at the top of this short-term move, though. And the only candle that hasn't tested that POC was the inside bear bar. Bear bar back down again. Man, that thing jumps straight down, too. Hey, hey. Welcome, welcome. So you get a little bit of a pullback down to this 14,000. This is the zone for buyers to try to snap it back up to the highs here. I like this area because the risk is relatively small compared to the potential reward. If this is going to bounce, the bounce should be relatively decisive and easily double up the distance from the amount of risk. Yeah. Very nice move. So you can see that's kind of what I was talking about. 2-to-1 in terms of actual risk. You very little in terms of a very nice pop to the upside. I was only able to get one, but hey, better than nothing. Looks like they're not done yet, though. Yikes. Careful here. They might not be done trapping. The hunters are hunting. Don't be the blood in the water, okay? It doesn't end well. It's like the sharks in Finding Nemo. Very nice bear bar to the downside, closing back through 14,000 POC. If the sellers are going to take it, this is going to be their shot. I do not like these giant bull bars off the lows. I'm going to skip this short side. I can see reasons why sellers would take it. Yeah, it's a nice pop for scalpers. But there's just too much. The risk just outweighs the reward for me here. A doji, how nice. Back up to retest 14,000. Again, careful. They may be trapping this. It looks like a nice shortable opportunity, but if buyers are trying to get as many contracts as possible, that's what they want. They want you to sell them all to them. See how it closes. That's going to be the important part. Do you see how it hit 14,000, though? That POC stopped for a minute, kind of hung out there, looked like it was going to be resistance, and now all of a sudden those sellers who were shorting 14,000 are thinking, holy crap, please close back down. Nasty zone here. I don't think the bulls are going to gain interest until we at least break a new high now above the 7 quarter. And another bear bar back to the downside will reignite the flame for the sellers. Although we did have a very nice bounce off of settlement, and it was a very nice area of interest down there. That would be the spark that sellers are going to need to try to get the job done. Uh-oh. Ooh, maybe they might not have it. Man, they are ripping everybody apart here around the POC. That's when, you know, typically it's a good example of when a POC can be your friend and your worst and your frenemy, I guess, for lack of better words. These POC areas are usually phenomenal on the first or second try, right? The first or second test when they're relatively fresh. But after they've been around for a while and the market's kind of hovering around them for a bit and it's tried to separate away one way and it's tried to separate away another way, don't get stuck getting caught around it anymore because it's going to end up being the chopping block. It usually ends up going in a range around there, and you can see just all this back and forth. And these candles look totally different from when they started to when they end. It's crazy how much movement happens. Just understand when it can be your friend and when you want to stay the heck away from it. Right now, it makes me a bit nervous. Sellers look like they're getting they're winning the fight, though. Now, a retest back to the POC here would make a bit more sense. They've fallen back through the lows, and a retest of it would be seen as a swift rejection. It would also be testing above a previous bear bar now, which makes it even stronger. The bulls just failed with 2 lower highs. They'd be trying to create a third lower high underneath 14,000 to try to get it to stick. Or nothing happens. That's fine too. Inside bull bar. Just kind of hovering. Ugh. They got so close. Tried so hard. All right, well, no test of the 14,000s. They did get above the previous bear bar, and there were some sellers there, but it's not as much of a pop as I was looking for. I have to wait for a bit more. Maybe the swing will trigger at some point. Okay, now bulls starting to climb back up to 14,000, but the problem is, ooh, okay, very nice bear bar back down again. Bear bar closing down, bear engulfing, something like that. More likely a scalp. It's forcing sellers to sell super low. Unless the bear bar sucks. Unless it's not even a bear bar. Okay, nice bear bar. See if sellers can get a follow through. There we go. Nice little refill for the sellers to try to take it back to the downside. Nice pop into the 96s for a potential short-term ad for sellers to push back down on. Retesting the pocket of wicks. Didn't get a fill. Nice pop back to the POC, but that big bull bar is a huge problem. I'm going to jump ship. Oop, one too many. There we go. Out. That big bull bar, even though the response was very aggressive, that bull bar, given that it was engulfing all the way back up, no thanks. That's an invalidation for me, and I'm not going to stick around noting how long it's taking these candles to form. I'm not going to stick around to see how this candle closes. I would rather take it while the loss is still small or around break even, you know? I increased the size of my loss a little bit because I accidentally went one. Well, actually, no, I reduced it a little bit. I think it was a profitable accident. Yay! Bought one too many. This is why you don't mess around with it. Understand the environment you're in. This is a big yikes moment if you didn't exit at that break-even reattempt and take the loss while the market allowed you to take it while it was small. It might give you another chance, and it might turn lower again. Here's the other shot. I'm going to utilize this as an opportunity for a potential bounce back up. I think a lot of the shorts that were short saw that as an opportunity to exit, and that move back up might just rattle their cage. Remember, these candles are taking ages to form. So, got to be nimble. I'm going to reduce a little bit on that move. Get my average a bit further down here. I still like this zone down here for buyers to try to pick it back up, but I haven't seen a reason for the buyers to do so yet. And if we start popping back up, I have to assume that a lot of these traders might utilize this pop as an exit for break-evens. Which is how I'm going to use it. Jeez. We got to get the heck away from this area. We have 3 lower highs still underneath the POC. It just doesn't feel like there's been that final trap, you know? Like, before the big move, there's always that one last, like, oh, holy crap! You know, it just, that hasn't happened yet. We're still waiting. Very nice bull bar back to the upside. Sellers who sold underneath that bear bar thinking rejection are obviously massively underwater. And now that we're back above this 14,000 POC, still no separation away from the POC, but, you know, hey. Going on 10:30, we still don't have any news or anything, but... Okay. Underneath that bull bar, buyers picked it back up. I'm curious to see what happens if this goes bull engulfing. I don't necessarily know I trust it yet. Nice bear bar. A 500 tick might be too slow for right now. There's just so little volume. Bear move back to the downside would have triggered sellers in. Not a very good bear bar, all things considered. So sellers who would have shorted underneath that, I mean, they might be feeling a little bit of pressure here. They're still underneath the POC. Wow. Nice drive back down again. Retesting this low side area. Giant bear bar. Okay. And then just like that, it starts backing right back up into bullishness again. Okay. Let's go back from the... Oh, now that might be what we're looking for here. That bull bar back up again is incredible. Yes, please. Buyers are looking for a continuation play to the upside. Now, this is either the beginning of that trap that we were just talking about for the sellers to take it lower, or the sellers just got royally slammed at the bottom. And this is looking for a heavy rotation to the upside. This would be the third higher low with an incredible bull bar to back it up. I obviously favor the long side. Upside objective, at least back up towards those 10s. But Euro session lows are next. They've got to get through the 5 area of resistance a little bit. Another close back above the POC. Starting to climb back up into those 5s. Got top asked. Didn't get a fill. There we go. First one off on that objective for that pop through the high there. See if they can finish the job off up to the high of the wedge. The bear bar closed right on break even. They were unable to close back underneath though. All right, I'll jump ship. They didn't want to follow through for the second one. I'm not going to stick around to find out what happens next. Now when they're starting to break back through the POC again. We know how this area is, vindictive SOB. I'm not going to play ball. It still doesn't feel like there was that gotcha moment, you know? Like... They did have a little bit of one right there, which is why I went long in the first place, but they couldn't follow through, and that is likely why. They haven't had that rug pull. That's a heck of a bear bar to potentially get that rug pull, though. So if this closes back up bullish and starts triggering, yeah. Buyers have a shot to start hitting it again. Sellers know that, so they're selling with everything they got right now to stop that from happening. So far, job successful. They better hope this doesn't turn into a bull in golfing. The lack of triggering for the bulls here is the total failure for the longs to make that attempt to the upside. So this closing down like this, especially with a strong bear bar, the next thought that would go through my head is any move that goes higher is buyers scrambling. They're trying to get out. I wish that would have closed a little stronger, but this is gearing up for another leg down. Which means we get to look at A to B equaling C to D. Sorry, I need to use different voice font. Whatever that's called. Cadence? Whatever. 5150 is the area for that. And hey, guess what? 53. 53 looks pretty good. I like that 53. I'm not going to offset it to 51, but that completion of the measured move down there, the bigger picture, coupling now together with the larger swing long. Wow. We might also be able to get, I don't know if it lines up well enough. Not quite. This needed to not pull back as far for that to line up nicer, but creates a pretty big zone. That's the hot spot, though. I'm at the bottom of that hot spot. A little bit past 10:30. Buyers are still failing, and they're not getting the job done at all. We know what happened, right? Like we were talking about. The bulls failing to trigger above that bull bar right there. That's the problem. Game over. So far, unless things change again, but we're going in 10:35. Haven't even hit the swing long. If it does hit I'm definitely still very much interested in that swing long if I even get a fill. But aside from adding more to like the scalp side of things, I don't know that I'm interested. So let's go into training time. Feel free to get those questions in. Get those taken care of for you. And here is the old faithful, the old S&P chart. This bad boy right here. Sheesh. It's so bright. It's piercing. Obviously, there's some color changes that might need to happen here, but overall, looks like the first 5 was kind of the definer. Haven't even deviated down yet. That would be down here at 23. So downside deviation for the S&P 5-minute would be a bit lower, down at 23. The first 5-minute POC $31.75. Man, did they play that level hard. Buyers really tried getting that going on that 5-minute. Wow. They bottom weighted the POC on the 5-minute. Next candle, bar 2 closed directly on top of it. Bar 3 bounced off of it with continuation. A little bit more proof here. Maybe buyers showing up underneath the low, right? Even wicked all the way back up and closed higher. They had their shot and then just annihilated them. Like, nope. Straight back to the downside. Heavy drive lower. Yikes. What happened to the bar numbers? Oh jeez. Who the heck knows which one it was? Hang on. I gotta figure out which... Is it this one? It's gotta be that one. There we go. That's better. I thought I was missing something. So right now we have a situation where the bulls failed, but we haven't broken a new low. Oh man, we've got some issues here for the sellers. What a train wreck of price action. Nice pop to the upside. Sellers are starting to see the kinks in the armor here. Hey, wait a minute. That was supposed to break a new low. Uh-oh. Bulls are starting to squeeze the sellers. Give me a shallow pullback. Just a shallow pullback. Nope. Not quite. Look at that bull bar in the 5-minute now. Jeez. Back above 14,000. NASDAQ rebounced off of settlement, failed to make a new low, and continued back up again. A lot of buyers will be looking to pick this up on the next pullback, sub 14K. All right, incredibly strong bull bar back above 14,000. Bulls are obviously trying to get this thing to get on back up to the top. Wedge high is next, which is going to cause some issues, but this higher low and the miss at the bottom and everything combined, fairly straightforward to see what's going on here. See if you can get a quick little flush back down here to the 14,000s. Even in the lower side of this bull bar, I'm all right with. Quick little scalpers pop. Waiting to see if they can get that 14K pullback, or maybe even a little bit lower, like 97. Bulls trying to show strength, but not really showing up to the party. All right, well, I guess that's going to do it. I'll wrap it up there. What's going on with Bitcoin? So with Bitcoin, I'm looking at... Pull that over here. There we go. On Bitcoin, we've got a very, very nice rotation off of the lows. The big thing that's been going on here, and one thing that stands out fairly obviously, if we go from the top of this move down in the first pullback, and then we go from the top of the move all the way down here, that higher low. So, as far as the overall movement, the initial pullback that the market had on Bitcoin, they were trying to defend right around this 55,000 mark. And they built a POC really, really nicely to do so, but then it started sliding through and they just couldn't get the job done. When they tried rotating back up, you can see, I mean, they just kind of fell flat on their face. Couldn't get it done, rolled back over, and now we're breaking lower. Until we create a POC at the bottom, we don't really have a reason to want to be a buyer, and we finally do have a nice POC down at the bottom with not only short-term accumulation, but also long-term accumulation. It would have been maybe a bit nicer to have a middle peak inside there. Either way, buyers are very obviously railing this thing to the upside now. And if we drag this all the way over, the only thing that might be still in the works would be a flash pullback down to those 36,000s-ish. How perfect would it be for a flash crash to make everybody think the world's falling apart just for a retest of POC, for them to dump their Bitcoins to Goldman, you know? So, I mean, bulls are very aggressively screaming higher, and continuation above that 36,791 POC. The sellers tried and they failed. It's kind of game over for them now. Would be a lot nicer to get maybe a bit more of a pullback here, but from a structural perspective, the only real thing that this could use a lot more of, aside from the shorter term structural resistance, is also breaking some of the previous major structural highs. Because, well, technically speaking, if you're looking at this as confirmed swings, this is the low point, this is the high point. It's got to break all the way up here yet. We never broke a new low. So, until we hit 43, it's hard to say the bulls are in control. Although, using my, the things that are stuck in my head, give me the power of sight, I can very obviously see here that the bulls are trying to shift this. What a mess. I'm glad I'm ducking this thing out. See if they want to pull back to the swing. Now, the S&P, that 5-minute bar, that will get sellers involved for sure. 28, trying to sell down to 27. Hasn't happened yet. They might even try to get 28 quarter. Better fill on it. But either way, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, so that's going to do it. Overall, fairly straightforward day, all things considered. A little bit choppy there in the middle. Once I started realizing it was a bit too choppy, just time to call it a day. Not worth it anymore. Volume super low. It's quad witching. There's no news whatsoever. Yikes. So just play it safe if you're going to keep trading. Hopefully you've already had a solid trading morning or afternoon or whatever it is for you. Otherwise, if you have any questions that I may have missed, feel free to shoot me an email, jhb@ssftg.com. Otherwise, I'll enjoy the rest of the day, rest up, and I will see you all tomorrow, all right? Have a good one, and we'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.